Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how you doing out there today? Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of The Last Science Show. As you may have noticed from the title of this episode, we are doing things just a little bit different for our next series of episodes. This month, we are celebrating Black History. That's right, Black History. Technically, every month is a celebration of Black History. But February is the month that old President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month in 1976, calling upon the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. End quote. If you didn't know, since America's inception, African Americans have had it very rough here in the United States and essentially everywhere in the world. Due to racism, prejudice, and a plethora of other issues, Black people had to put in infinitely more work than their Caucasian counterparts in order to succeed. For over 2 centuries in the United States, it was illegal for Black people to be educated in some areas, to learn basic reading and writing in some areas. This information is very significant when we think of those African Americans that rose up in spite of the discrimination and hatred. And these African Americans succeeded in various aspects of life. My forefathers and foremothers were so driven, so dedicated, and so determined that they decided to triumph and advance as a people. Therefore, on The Last Science Show this month, we are going to honor different Black scientists the entire month. We love science on The Last Science Show. So we plan to highlight a select number of great African American scientists that have made or are making significant contributions to the world of science. The first Black scientist we are going to honor is George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver was an African American scientist and educator. Carver is famous for many inventions, including a number of uses for the peanut. George Washington Carver was born enslaved and went on to become one of the most prominent scientists and inventors of his time, as well as a teacher of the Tuskegee Institute. Carver devised over 100 products using one major crop, the peanut, including dyes, plastics, and gasoline. Carver was most likely born in 1864, enslaved in Diamond, Missouri, during the Civil War years. Like many children of the enslaved, the exact year and date of his birth are unknown. Carver was one of many children born to Mary and Giles, an enslaved couple owned by Moses Carver. A week after his birth, Carver was kidnapped along with his sister and mother from the Carver farm by raiders from the neighboring state of Arkansas. The three were later sold in Kentucky. Among them, only the infant Carver was located by an agent of Moses Carver and returned to Missouri. The conclusion of the Civil War in 1865 brought the end of slavery in Missouri. Moses and his wife Susan decided to keep Carver and his brother James at their house after that time, raising and educating the 2 boys. Susan Carver taught Carver to read and write, since no local school would accept Black students at the time. The search for knowledge would remain a driving force for the rest of Carver's life. As a young man, he left the Carver home to travel to a school for Black children 10 miles away. It was at this point that the boy, who had always identified himself as Carver's George, first came to be known as George Carver. Carver attended a series of schools before receiving his diploma at Minneapolis High School in Minneapolis, Kansas. Accepted to Highland College in Highland, Kansas, Carver was denied admittance once college administrators learned of his race. Instead of attending classes, he homesteaded a claim where he conducted biological experiments and compiled a geological collection. While interested in science, Carver was also interested in the arts. In 1890, he began studying art and music at Simpson College in Iowa, developing his painting and drawing skills through sketches of botanical samples. His obvious aptitude for drawing the natural world prompted a teacher to suggest that Carver enroll in the botany program at the Iowa State Agricultural College. Carver moved to Ames and began his botanical studies the following year as the first black student at Iowa State. Carver excelled in his studies. Upon completion of his Bachelor of Science degree, Carver's professors, Joseph Budd and Lewis Pamel, persuaded him to stay on for a master's degree. His graduate studies included intensive work in plant pathology at the Iowa Experiment Station. In these years, Carver established his reputation as a brilliant botanist and began the work that he would pursue the remainder of his career. After graduating from Iowa State, Carver embarked on a career of teaching and research. Booker T. Washington, the founder of the historically black Tuskegee Institute, hired Carver to run the school's agricultural department in 1896. Washington lured the promising young botanist to the institute with a hefty salary and the promise of 2 rooms on campus, while most faculty members lived with a roommate. Carver's special status stemmed from his accomplishments and reputation, as well as his degree from a prominent institution, not normally open to black students. The agricultural department at Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, achieved national renown under Carver's leadership, with a curriculum and a faculty that he helped to shape. Areas of research and training included methods of crop rotation and the development of alternative cash crops for farmers in areas heavily planted with cotton. This work helped under harsh conditions, including the devastation of the boll weevil in 1892. The development of new crops and diversification of crop use helped to stabilize the livelihoods of people, many former enslaved who had backgrounds not unlike Carver's own. The education of African American students at Tuskegee contributed directly to the effort of economic stabilization among black people. In addition to formal education in a traditional classroom setting, Carver pioneered a mobile classroom to bring his lessons to farmers. The classroom was known as a Jessup wagon, after New York financier and Tuskegee donor Morris Ketchum Jessup. Carver went on to become a prominent scientific expert and one of the most famous African Americans of his time. Carver achieved international fame in political and professional circles. President Theodore Roosevelt admired his work and sought his advice on agricultural matters in the United States. Carver was also recognized abroad for his scientific expertise. In 1916, he was made a member of the British Royal Society of Arts, a rare honor for an American in general. Carver also advised Indian leader Mahatma Gandhi on matters of agriculture and nutrition. Carver used his celebrity to promote scientific causes for the remainder of his life. He wrote a syndicated newspaper column and toured the nation, speaking on the importance of agricultural innovation and the achievements at Tuskegee. Carver's work at the helm of the Tuskegee Institute's agricultural department included groundbreaking research on plant biology, much of which focused on the development of new uses for crops, including peanuts, sweet potatoes, soybeans, and pecans. Some of my favorite. Carver's inventions include hundreds of products, including more than 300 from peanuts, milk, plastics, paints, dyes, cosmetics, medicinal oils, soap, ink, wood stains, 118 from sweet potatoes, molasses, postage stamp glue, flour, vinegar, and synthetic rubber, and even a type of gasoline. The man was great. At the time, cotton production was on the decline in the South, and overproduction of a single crop had left many fields exhausted and barren. Carver suggested planting peanuts and soybeans, both of which could restore nitrogen to the soil, along with sweet potatoes. While these crops grew well in southern climates, there was little demand. Carver's inventions and research solved this problem and helped struggling sharecroppers in the South, many of them formerly enslaved, now faced with necessary cultivation. Contrary to popular belief, Carver did not invent peanut butter. However, he did do a lot of research into new and alternate uses for peanuts. He even became known as the Peanut Man after delivering a speech before the Peanut Growers Association in 1920, attesting to the wide potential of peanuts. The following year, Carver testified before Congress in support of a tariff on imported peanuts, which Congress passed in 1922. Carver also spoke about the possibilities for racial harmony in the United States. From 1923 to 1933, Carver toured white Southern colleges for the Commission on Interracial Cooperation. However, he largely remained outside of the political sphere and declined to criticize prevailing social norms outright. Nonetheless, Carver's scholarship and research contributed to improved quality of life for many farming families, making Carver an icon for African Americans and white Americans alike. George Washington Carver passed away on January 5, 1943, at the age of 78. He was buried next to Booker T. Washington on the Tuskegee grounds. Carver's epitaph reads, "He could have added fortune to fame, but caring for neither, he found happiness and honor in being helpful to the world." And that's a perfect way to end out this brief video honoring George Washington Carver. His mission was to be helpful to everyone, even those that were against seeing him succeed. Thank you so much for tuning in to this exciting video. Get ready to see more videos just like this month for our Black History Month special. Continue to subscribe, like, comment, and share The Last Science Show. More people need to hear this great information. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good science.